I feel like busting out into some Eminem, like, guess who's back? Back again. Anyways, hi. I want to start this video out by apologizing for not doing any voiceovers for my Christmas videos, and I want to apologize for the length of my Christmas videos. The majority of my footage from Christmas got corrupted, and so I only had a little bit to work with. And when I looked at the small amount that I had, I just got super annoyed and angry with just technology in general. So I wasn't in the best mood to do the voiceovers, and I thought it's better if I just have the music and you not hear me try to pretend to be upbeat about something that should be fun and enjoyable, but because of circumstances was just not fun at all. But anyways, here we are, we're in the present, it's Valentine's Day, and I decided to approach it from a juvenile level. Juvenile in that, for me, that was probably the time when I enjoyed Valentine's the most, when I was a little kid. And so I thought to myself, what would have been a fun addition to like my elementary school Valentine's Day party? You have the little cards and the little candies, and I thought these cookies would be like just the ticket. So I decided to be a little bit cheeky and cheesy, and I went with Be Mine. So it's a bee cookie and then a heart cookie that has mine piped in it, and Owl Love You Forever, which is an owl cookie, and then a heart with Love You Forever piped in it. So now we get on to the actual work. Here you see I've piped the head and the contrasting bands of the bee's body in black, and then I'm going to go back in once that's dried and pipe in my yellow bands. But totally user error. I didn't thin out my royal icing enough because I was super concerned with making sure that it wasn't too loose and that it would really sit on the same level as the black bands, so there wouldn't be any kind of weird depressions. But as luck will have it, that is exactly what happened. So my royal icing was a little bit too thick, and everything looks great here. And then when I let them sit to dry, I noticed that my scribe tool marks were leaving like little drag marks through the royal icing, and there were some air bubbles, aka holes in the royal icing. So of course I overreacted about the whole thing. I was like, oh my goodness, I have to start all over from the beginning. So that's where we come to this cookie, where I've piped the entire body and head in black, and then once that's dried, I've come back in and I'm piping the yellow bands. And long story short, the difference in the two piping techniques isn't very noticeable, and you'll see that at the end of the video. To fix the minor errors in the first set of bees, I just piped love hearts over the areas where the air pockets were and depressions were most noticeable. So on to the hearts. Super simple. I outlined the hearts and then I flood them with the corresponding royal icing color. For the bees, I decided to go with more traditional colors, so red and white for the hearts. And for the owls, I wanted to do something non-traditional, so I went with a golden yellow and magenta. So complementary colors, but not your typical Valentine's Day idea of Valentine's colors. After I've flooded all of the hearts, I move on to the detail work on the bees. So that's when I pipe the little love hearts over the air pockets, and then I start working on the details like the eyes and the wings. I wanted to try to get as many hearts into these cookies as possible, so I know it's not very clear here, but the pupil / iris are also little black hearts, and then I pipe just a white dot to simulate the light reflection in the bee's eye. On to the owls. I've done a lot of owl cookies in the past, and if you watched some videos on my channel before, you'll know that for Vlogmas 2 years ago I did owl cookies, and so I was scouring Pinterest trying to get some inspiration for how I wanted these owls to look, because I wanted them to be a little bit different from the ones that I'd done before. But there wasn't one cookie that I really felt had all of the design elements I wanted, so these cookies are sort of a hodgepodge of like 12 different owl cookies that I saw on Pinterest. When I was deciding on the color scheme for these owls, I was really thinking about ice cream. So I decided to go with like the color of vanilla ice cream, coffee ice cream, and chocolate ice cream. And as I said before with the bees, I wanted to try to get as many hearts into these cookies as possible. So I did the chest, torso, body portion of the owl and the vanilla color in a heart. And then I piped the facial feature part of the owl's head, aka where the eyes and the beak would go, in the coffee color, and then I did the wings also in the coffee color. And then with these cookies that have the vanilla as the heart torso portion, I decided to pipe the exterior portion of the body in the chocolate color, if that makes any sense. As I said before, these cookies are sort of a hodgepodge of like so many other owl cookies that I've seen, and I think because I had so many different sources of inspiration, I kind of got a little bit lost in the execution of these cookies. Because as I said before, I wanted them to be a little bit different from the owl cookies I'd done before, and I wasn't really sure to go about that. And part of it is because in my mind, the cutters that I have for owl cookies are much larger than they actually are. So when I was imagining these cookies, I had a lot of other design elements that I wanted to put on the cookie, but then in reality, I'm like, all of this isn't going to fit on the cookie. You have to edit your design. So, you know, I'm here flooding the cookie thinking I have to edit this design. What do I take out? What do I leave in? And I think it stopped me up a little bit there. It was just a little bit, I don't want to say stifled, but directionless. I know, with all of this source inspiration material that I had, I was directionless. So here I'm piping on the contrasting color for the facial feature so that the eyes will sit up nice and high, because I didn't want everything to be on the same level. So here I am piping the eyes, and it's super simple. It's just 2 small ovals that I'll fill in, and then I'm gonna go back in with black royal icing to make the pupil iris area of the eye. And then once I've got that all smoothed out with my scribe tool and I think everything looks even, I'll go in and do the finishing details on the eyes, and that's just piping light reflection dots in the eyes. So 2 larger dots at the top of the pupil iris area, and then smaller dots sort of on the edge below the larger white dots, if that makes sense. Well, you'll see it, so even if I don't describe it the best, you'll see what I mean. So after I finish piping on the eyes to the owls, I put them aside to let them dry, and I decided to move on to the wings on the bee. I knew that I wanted to give the effect that, you know, one wing was in front and one wing was in back instead of them both being together. And I knew that I wanted them to be white. Earlier I was having a debate with myself if I wanted them to be white or if I wanted them to be sort of like a light blue to give the effect of like light coming through the wings. But ultimately decided on just the flat white royal icing, no, you know, like special detail or dots or piping on the wings like I'd seen some people do on their bee cookies on Pinterest. But I did know that I wanted the wings to sort of stand out and also blend into the bee at the same time. So I decided to outline them in black. That way, you know, there's the sense of cohesion with the wings to the body because the body is black, but it also is a nice way to bring attention to the wings themselves, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. So on to the finishing details for the face of the owl. You know, I've said previously I had a lot of ideas floating through my mind about these cookies and how I wanted them to look, but because of the size constraints. I didn't think that I would be able to fit all of the details on the cookie without it looking cluttered. So I did this sort of over piping on the facial features so that the eyes would sit up higher. But I also wanted to include the element of the owls where, you know, their hair is around their eyes and they sort of wing out at the upper corners. I really wanted to add that detail to these cookies. And unfortunately on the smaller cookies, because the face portion is so small, that winged effect obscures the color underneath where the eyes are sitting. On the larger cookie, it's easier to see because obviously it's a bigger cookie, so, you know, I had more room to work with. But that was the effect that I was trying to emulate. And here on the larger cookie, because I'm still trying to figure out if that facial feature piping is what I want to do, I decided to work on the wings. And it's just super simple. It's really stiff royal icing that I pipe on in little dots, and then I brush through with a paintbrush, and the bristles of the brush leave striations to mimic sort of individual feather hairs. I hope that's what you call it, feather hairs. I'm not really sure. But that's it. And then after this, which you won't see because you've already seen it, I do the piping over the lighter area where the eyes are sitting to give that winged hair feather effect around the eyes. I also pipe like little dots on the center heart chest area to accentuate the shape of the heart. You know, I said previously that I wanted to try to get as many hearts into these cookies as possible because I kind of wanted to be just like super cheesy, and I feel like if I were a little kid I would love things like that. And so, you know, as I said, the inspiration for these cookies were just an elementary school Valentine's Day party, and so there you go. So here I'm just piping on the beaks on the owls, so it's just triangles in yellow royal icing. Super simple, nothing complicated about it. Moving on to the hearts. I use the outline or the projection of mine just because writing and piping letters for me in particular is always anxiety filled, and if I have that guide that I can follow, I'm just less anxious. The piping flows a little bit smoother. It's just a better situation for me all around. If you, however, are not a person who gets anxious about these things, then you don't have to use the projection as a stencil to help you out. You just pipe it freehand. But I mean, I have this really bad habit where I hold my breath and I don't breathe, and so it's just better, you know, if I use the machine. I did the piping twice, so I piped over the letters again because, as you saw, my royal icing broke. But that's essentially what I did with all of the red and white hearts. And then for the yellow and magenta hearts, I did the Love You Forever. And again, I did the over piping because when I was looking at some of the cookies that I'd done before, you know, with the Love You Forever, and I just piped it one time, I preferred this look. I preferred the thicker font look because I felt like it paired better with the animal cookies. So here I am just outlining the hearts in the corresponding color to the font because I thought it was a nice way to, you know, finish the cookie. And for the mine cookies, I'm just doing little black dots to sort of simulate the trail of the bee as if it were flying through the air. Not a step that you yourself would have to do if you were trying to do these cookies or you wanted to do these cookies. But I thought it was just a fun little way to finish it all off. And here are the final products, or the finished projects. There are the bees, and like I said at the beginning, I don't think you can tell any major differences between the two different piping techniques. I also wanted to mention that I've put little skewers in the bottom of some of the cookies so that they can be placed inside of cakes or cupcakes, and that was just to show, you know, that cookies can be displayed in another fashion other than being put into treat bags or displayed on a platter. Of the two projects, the bees were definitely my favorite because my vision for them was so clear and I didn't have any doubts, whereas with the owls, I wasn't really sure how to execute what I was thinking about. But in the end, I had fun, and that's all that mattered. Thank you for watching.